Wow, this time my mic is actually working. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Differently Wired Show, episode 30. My name is Max Derrat, your friendly neighborhood Simpsons kin, as I'm sure you are all aware. And joining me, as always, he is PhD. He is, I don't know, somehow he manages to beat the heat better than anybody I know. He is John Tucker. John, how's it going?
It's wonderful, Max. Thank you.
Yeah. How are you doing today?
Great.
Just, just great. All right.
Great and good.
Great. Somewhere on that spectrum, yeah. I've had a bit of a weird day today. I was almost afraid that I would have to take my mother to the hospital today because she was trying to reach behind a chair. The chair hit her sternum or something. It sounded like something cracked, but thankfully
Oh,
everything's okay. It's just a little bit concerning because obviously I had other stuff to do today. I was worried if we'd be able to do the show, but no, we're here. Everything's good. Um, yeah, we have a lot to get to today on today's show. So excuse me, I just had a bunch of hot dogs for dinner. But first of all, I got to do the usual stuff. But like I said, we are going to run through it quick because we have a lot of stuff to get to. First of all, Facebook page. We have a Facebook page. Link to it in the description box below. Go and like it. Yada yada yada. All right, Discord. We have a Discord server. Link in the description. Yada yada yada. We're almost at 600 members. Thank you so much, guys. And things have been going very very well over there. Plus, I put out a video exactly 3 hours ago on my channel. And I'm telling you guys about this because it's of particular importance to the stuff that we talk about on the show, which is mental health and autism. The video I did was on a video game called Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. And the whole purpose of the game is to try and demonstrate to anybody who doesn't have mental illness sort of what it's like to live with a mental illness, specifically psychosis. But if you happen to have anxiety or depression, you can find a lot to relate to when it comes to this video game. I highly recommend you check it out and share it around because I really think it's important that people become aware of these types of games because video games have a unique opportunity to present to people what it's like to have these types of problems, what through the interactivity of you with the controller and the character and all that. So yeah, go check it out. And finally, hey, we got the chat back up again. I don't know what happened originally because when I tried to pop out the chat so that I can get the URL and put it into OBS, it wasn't working. But here we are. Just want to say hi to everybody. Hi, Marissa. Hi, Rickety. Hi, Mary. Hi, Just Your Average Doormat. Hi, Emerald Queen. Alita, Meet, Joel, Lucid, Magic Seahorse. Good to see you all. All right, so we're not going to spend too much time on the main topic because, like I said, we have a lot of people waiting in the background just to hear my lovely voice and John's lovely voice, I guess. I mean, if you're into that sort of. Okay.
yeah, kind of.
I'm just kidding. So the main topic for today was just to us. I always forget to do this every time we bring up the main topic when somebody else suggests it for me. Somebody suggested that we talk about anger, and I can't remember exactly who it was. Did they put it in the forget it. Somebody will let me know. Please forgive me for to whoever suggested that we talk about anger. So obviously anger is something that affects everybody. You don't have to be neuroatypical. You can be either neuroatypical or neurotypical. It doesn't matter. I just sort of wanted to talk about it because of the way that it uniquely affects people that are differently wired. Now, what I figure I would do is I just give sort of my own specific instances of how anger might affect me. And then once we get to the call-in section, if there's anybody that wants to talk about it, they can give their own specific instances about how being differently wired affects the way they feel anger and the way they project anger. But John, I sort of want to get your take first and foremost, just because I'm sure with the people that you've dealt with in your practice, you've dealt with a whole bunch of different people that have felt anger and have been differently wired. And I was just wondering if you'd seen any sort of pattern in what it is that causes them to feel their anger, like what sort of things trigger that. You know what I mean?
Usually, long-term frustration with being misunderstood or mistreated. Very often, differently wired folks have the best of intentions to do something a certain way to have a certain effect, but it doesn't come out the way they want. So it makes for a problem. Communications are strained and stressed. The other the other thing I wanted to mention when you brought up anger, a lot of people try to stifle their anger, and that actually can be a problem if you just pretend, make it go away, or worst than anything, say, "Oh, I mustn't feel anger." Sometimes it's okay to feel anger. You need to direct control your reactions to it, but it's really hard to talk yourself out of a feeling. Different parts of your brain are at work there. So the feeling of anger may be okay. It's how you process what you do next that really makes all the difference. So, but essentially, frustration, sometimes fear, are underpinning the anger. I
Yeah,
don't see it a lot.
yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up. How it's not a bad thing to feel angry. It's inherent to the human experience. And the reason why I say it's interesting is because in the video that I just mentioned that I put up, I was talking about how the idea of gods back in the days of yore. No, back in the ancient days, like around the time of the Greeks and the Romans, and the gods that they had back in the day, what with the god of war, the god of anger, how the reason why they had those gods might have been because they realized that, hey, these emotions that we have, we're slavish to them. We can't control the fact that we can get angry, that we can feel sad, or anything like that. It's just the way that things are. And before, science, the scientific method um, was sort of in the common collective consciousness, because obviously it didn't exist at the time. The best way they can make sense of these things is by classifying them as gods. So that's why you did have a god of anger. That's why you did have a god of sleep. It's because we're all slavish to these things. So it's important to recognize that, look, like John said, you can feel angry. It's just a matter of how you're able to deal with it. Now, if you are differently wired, and I'm speaking from my experience as somebody on the spectrum, what will happen is the world around you affects your senses to such an intense degree from time to time. It's almost impossible to envision a reality where you don't give into that anger. So what you have to do is you have to, like John said, figure out strategies in order to be able to deal with it, to allow it to come out in a healthy way, and to not have it come out in a way where it can compromise your ability to succeed in life, whether that's personally or in the workplace or stuff like that. And John, I'm actually kind of curious to see what your responses to this will be, because this is something that I deal with on a regular basis. Anger. I don't want to say anger management, because it's not like I have an anger issue. It's something that's just built into me that I have to deal with. But when it comes to people that are differently wired and dealing with anger, what have you found works best?
Small steps, little things that help you recognize the triggers to anger. So you can't say, "Oh, I'm going to be a calm and something person." That's too broad and vague, and it's hard to work on. So normally, what's best is in this situation when she says that, "Oh, I can choose to say this, and I'll diffuse this, or I'll go this way with it." So you kind of work on it little bits at a. It's like you've pulled back and you're using the scientific method, or you're using research, or you're using your powers of observation to say, "Oh, every time they do this, I do that, and it always goes bad. So let me try this." Little steps, small steps,
Yeah,
looking at what you're doing is the way I go with that stuff.
you got to sort of be conscious at first. At first, you have to sort of perceive every moment that you might get angry and step back from it and try to think up different methods of how to deal with it. Now, at first, you're not obviously going to come across the best methods. Like you said, you have to make little steps to figure out what works best for you. But after a while, you can sort of find yourself minimizing the amount of meltdowns or episodes of anger that you might be feeling. And I certainly found that to be the case, because when it comes to certain things that tend to irk me, like, for example, you just go on Twitter or look at the news every single day, and you just ask yourself, gosh, how can people be so stupid? I'm talking about politics here.
Mm.
But then what I got to realize after I sort of have my little internal fit is that, well, what control do I have over that? There's only a certain amount of things that I can do in response to that. It's not like I can change the way people act. What I have to do instead is I have to, if I want to have some sort of control over it, what I do is like, okay, maybe I can investigate the psychology of these people. Maybe I can figure out what it is that motivates them that's causing this sort of this conflict between political parties, and from that I can sort of, in the studies that I do into that psychological mindset, I can find ways to sort of be at peace by understanding the way things are, and not just seeing all the madness as meaningless and without cause. I can see some sort of order behind the madness, and then once I get that, I can step back from it and sorry, I seem to be rambling, but John, do you sort of know what I'm getting at?
You're sort of echoing what I was saying about stepping back and looking at it in a rational sort of way. You see a pile of stuff that upsets you, so you step back and say, okay, what's actually going on here? For instance, in the political sphere, you have to understand that what politicians pronounce is for their voting audience in their constituency. So what they say has to work for the people who will keep them in power. So they're not going to say, quote unquote, what they think. They're going to say what they think will work. You have to understand that political statements are concerned. It's not a bunch of people honestly arguing with each other. It's actually about posturing. It's about marketing. It's about psychological games that they play, to try to convince you that they're good. I think back a long, long time ago, before the time of most people on this call, to the nominations of Robert Stanfield and Justin Trudeau's dad, Pierre Elliott Trudeau.
Yeah.
Now, Robert Stanfield was becoming elected as the leader of his particular party, and he was filmed eating a banana. Okay, hold that in your mind. A grown-up man on TV eating a banana. People kind of snigger. Hold that thought and compare it to Trudeau. At his nomination, he had a rose in his teeth. And it's all about image. It's all about one guy, outclassing the other guy in how he looks. It's strange stuff, but that rose in his teeth appeared in political cartoons for years.
Yeah, but everybody, from what I understand, like when I went to school and we were learning about politics, everybody seemed to love Trudeau nonetheless, even though they might be making fun of his teeth. Who was the, like, I remember there was this one famous American debate. It was between Nixon and somebody else, and there was this sort of psychological study done around it where people that were listening to the debate on the radio thought that Nixon was doing well, but if you watched him on the television, you could see that he seemed tired. It seemed like he was sweating, and just from that, they thought that his opponent was the winner of the debate. Yeah, it's stuff like
it's about
that.
looks.
Yeah, it's about looks.
It's about looks. You stand back from being angry about what they're saying and think about why they're saying it, and say, oh, you make a research out of it. And quite often, when you're looking at managing your feelings, stepping back and looking at, why am I doing this? What's behind what I'm saying? Maybe if I step back, think about it a little, I can be clearer.
Yeah.
So in a way, you can make the anger not wash over everybody and destroy them. You can kind of let it happen, but step back and see what's going on here.
Yeah, yeah, that's basically what I was trying to say. Thank you for helping me say that, John, because I was sort of losing my train of thought before for a second. But yeah, what I found has helped me a little bit when it comes to dealing with the chaos of everyday life is trying to find the little places where I can make some sort of order out of all the chaos. And like John just said there, if you look at politicians and see what they're trying to do and how the current political landscape is completely deleterious to everybody's sanity, especially mine. If you can sort of come to the realization about why they do these sorts of things, like John said, it's about posturing or whatever, and trying to say what other people want to hear, then you start to understand, okay, maybe it's not as bad as it seems. Even though it's still bad, it's not as bad. And even that, there's a sense of personal relief in that. So, with that all out of the way, I'd like to spend more time on this topic because obviously anger is something that a whole bunch of different directions that you can go in with that specific topic. We might come back to it in a future episode, but I want to hear from you guys, those who might be listening to the show right now or who might be listening to the recorded version afterwards. I want to hear from you when it comes to times that you've been feeling particularly angry. What methods have you used in order to diffuse your internal rage and to maybe find, like, can you maybe suggest ways that help minimize the potential for fits of rage in the future? I'd like to hear from you guys. Put them in the comment section below. All right. With that out of the way, unfortunately, because we have so many people lined up for the call-in segment, we're not going to have time to get to the mailbag segment today, but we will get to it next week because we do have a couple questions that we got to get to. For now, we're going to move over to the call-in segment. Like I said, let me just bring up the graphic for that. Sorry, guys. Just give me 1 second. All right. Taking your calls. So in case you guys don't know how this works, every single week we like to go into our Discord server and say, hey, guys, we're going to... we try to get people to sign up for the call-in segments. God, I'm all over the place today, guys. Sorry. All right, so if you want to sign up for the call-in segment, all you have to do is go into the Discord server. Like I said, there's a link to it in the description box below. And once you're there, all you have to do is scroll to the very bottom of the text chats. You can see all of them in the left-hand side. And once you get to the bottom, you'll see one that says call-in sign-up. It's the one that's highlighted right there. If you want to talk to John and I directly, all you have to do is go into the text chat and put in your name. That's it. And we can talk to you directly. So, in order to do that, though, we do have to switch over to Discord. Currently, John and I are using a audio program called Zoom for the beginning of the episode. It just helps John and I sound better, but we do have to move over to Discord. So if you guys will just give us a minute, I'm just going to put up the music, and then we'll be right back. All right, I think John is good to go. John, are you there?
I am.
All right, awesome possum. Let's get to the very first caller, and our very first caller is Spocko, who unfortunately we weren't able to get to last week, I think it was, because we had some technical problems, but they're here today. Spocko, what's going on?
My connection is bad. So I hope my laptop won't freeze and crash, because earlier today it blue screened and I couldn't even read the text it was showing me. So
Oh. Okay, well,
yeah.
Right now you sound okay, but God forbid, knock on wood, if you happen to fall out of the call, you're more than welcome to type into the chat whatever it is that you wanted to say, and then I'll be happy to read it so that John can hear it and we can discuss it, okay? But for now, let's just go with the audio as originally intended. So what do you want to talk about, Spocko?
I wrote a page of things I would maybe like to discuss. I feel like about anger and then more about fatigue, which was last week's topic.
Mm-hmm. Well, before you get started, can I just ask, because there are 5 other people behind you, if you could sort of pick whatever it is that you want to discuss most, because unfortunately we only have a certain amount of time for everybody.
I have quite short list of things.
Okay.
an essay per se, but kind of just a few lines.
Okay.
I'll just read it. It's maybe 10 sentences.
All right, that's totally fine.
Well, since fatigue was last week's thing, I'll logically start from there.
Okay.
Okay, simple socializing. Though it's enjoyable to talk to nice people in real life, I become exhausted and stressed, which causes stomach cramps and physical fatigue to the degree that I have to stay home from school at least one day a week. If I'm at school for a whole week, every now and then it's manageable. Usually I just stay home and usually I just stay home one day a week because my body can't handle the stress socializing causes me.
Oh, okay. So have you read everything then? Spacco?
That was about fatigue. Well, it's really hard for me to try and complete upper secondary school because of this. Like I barely got through lower secondary, which is kind of the Finnish equivalent of high school, and middle school kind of melted.
Oh, okay.
And now I am in upper secondary, which could be described as high school and university kind of together because the ages overlap.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say what one it is exactly.
Okay, so I sort of understand where you're coming from. How, like, because what I've always said to people who have asked me, so like even most recently when I did my Q&A, like, what's the most stressful thing that I find myself ever doing? And like you, Spacco, the most exhausting thing is being social with people. Now that might sound strange because what am I doing right now? I'm doing a live podcast in front of a whole bunch of people, but it's different because when I'm doing a podcast, there are certain things that I can expect to happen. You know, it's whenever I do the call-in segment, the person comes on to ask their question, I respond. But what's different about this in comparison to a regular conversation? In a regular conversation, the variables are completely random. You don't know what's going to happen. Beyond the initial "hi, how are you," the stress of not knowing what's going to come or how people might view you can be quite exhausting. So does that sort of like what I just said sort of adequately capture what you were saying or what you're experiencing? Spacco? Oh.
It's harder to leave such situation where there are a lot of people around me and I'm in a classroom, say, and there are so many stimuli in the room. Like the lighting is so bright and it flickers because those old style school lights just flicker on a very annoying frequency, and all the electrical devices hum in the high pitched noise. And people are muttering, people are chewing gum, people are shuffling around on their benches and so on. And I just have to. I must stim in some way, and usually I draw because it causes the least havoc in the room among other people. Otherwise, I would probably like stomp on the floor or drum on the table or something.
Is there any way? Can I just make a suggestion? Because like I understand like why stemming and drawing would help. It sort of focuses all your attention onto those things instead of all the other things happening around you. That's sort of why like when I'm at work, for example, I listen to music because when I focus on that, I don't have to focus much beyond that. I could just listen to that and do my work, and I don't have like the loud noises or the flickering lights, like you said, bother me. But I was also just going to suggest, is there some way that maybe you can appeal to your teachers or the school in general about why maybe you should wear headphones or something, or even earbuds. Just something that can cancel out some of the noise.
Yeah, I have noise cancelling headphones, and getting them was a relief. It was the best thing ever.
Okay, good. So that's one step in the right direction. While I just think of a couple other things, John, is there anything else that you'd sort of recommend to Spacco while, like, based on what you said?
Yeah, one of the things that used to happen when I was a teacher, occasionally people would come and they would have issues with overstimulation or something. They would then let folks know about this, and usually people are okay with switching to incandescent lighting from fluorescent lighting, say. In the 70s, I did that, and I noticed the energy in the room got calmer the instant I stopped those flickering, ugly lights. They're horrible. They make everyone bothered a little, no matter where they are on the spectrum or if they're on one at all. But they're bad for everyone. But it's probably not a problem to, have some change in lighting.
Or maybe
if the teachers,
Yeah, or maybe like if necessary, you can wear like really light sunglasses or something like that. One other thing I'd recommend is something that actually helped me out a lot when I was in university. Ask if you can find some way to record the class. So that way, if you need to step out and you're afraid of missing something, you can have some sort of recording device going so that you can come back to it later. Now, it could be like an app on your phone if you want to use audio, or maybe you can sort out some way to put a camera at the back of the room, and as long as it's, obviously there are privacy concerns, you don't want people's faces in the video, but if there's some way that you can convince your teacher to just set up the camera so that it's only focusing on the board and them speaking, that might help. Have you ever gotten that any?
It's actually a good idea since I'm so much absent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that is a good idea.
Yeah, it might be something you want to consider, because after all, like the main goal here is not to try and skip out on your priorities, which is obviously your education. You just want to be able to create an environment for yourself where you can reach your fullest potential. And obviously you have a decent case here. All you're asking for is, hey, I want to be able to learn to the best of my abilities, and I want to put the camera there. Now, obviously, if they say something like, well, how do we know that you're not just going to record every class and never come in? Well, obviously, you'd show your determination by coming in when you need to. And then if you need to go out for a few minutes just to calm down, you will, and then you'll come back in, right? I think that's a decent compromise. Don't you think?
Yeah, that is.
Okay. So, obviously, like, I know you said that there's other stuff that you wanted to talk about, Spacco, but unfortunately we have run out of time. But I do encourage you to sign up next week so that we can talk about the other stuff on your list, if that's okay.
Week I have started school about on Tuesday, so I can't really sign up for next week.
Okay.
Or before week 42 when I have holiday. But I will see if I can get in sometime before next year's summer holiday.
Okay. And it if worse comes to worse, you could always send us an email. That works too.
Email's good.
Yeah. All right. So thank you so much, Spacco, for coming on. We really do appreciate hearing from you, and I'm so glad that we actually got you on this time. We hope to hear from you in the future, and best of luck with school, okay?
Thus.
All right. And let us know how everything goes. All right. That's it for Spacco. Let's move on to our next topic. And this guy is somebody who's been on the show a lot before. I don't know why my voice just went up like that. Forgive me. Holobreen, what's happening?
Hi, yeah. So the topic I want to talk about is a little bit heavy, so if I may, a few funny noises from my jaw harp.
Whoa, 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 whoa. What was that?
It's a jaw harp.
A jaw harp?
It's cartoon boing noises. That's how they make them.
That's awesome. Okay, I need to get myself one of those. Go ahead.
Well, just a quick laugh before I dive into my really serious topic of mass shootings.
Okay. Well, just okay.
I did ask about this in the Discord.
That's fine. Just for the love of God, don't play that noise while you're talking about it. because we don't
No,
want to.
never.
I know you wouldn't. I'm just joking.
Okay. Right. So I don't know if the news from the United States reaches Canada that much in terms of mass shootings. I imagine it probably does because we're neighbors. But
Yeah,
you might know the other day we had 2 mass shootings in one day.
yeah, it's absolutely horrible.
Yeah. So I came across this study that looked at mass shootings going back to the 60s, and it found the 4 things most mass shooters have in common. And there's another statistic I found that was interesting. But the 4 characteristics were the first one is early childhood trauma. The second one is some instigating event that's when they decide enough is enough, and that's when they make the decision to do it. The third thing is they research previous mass shooters to, like, I guess, figure out how they do it and stuff like that. And the fourth thing is the physical means to do it, meaning they have access to a gun.
Sure.
And the statistic I found that was interesting, they said 80% of school shooters do not use their own gun.
Hmm.
And it kind of makes sense, right? If they're students don't usually have their own guns.
Well, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And plus, they probably never had much use for the gun until they came up with this terrible idea, and that was when they went to go out and get one. And it's probably why they were able to get one in the first place, is because they haven't shown any signs of mental instability. So they go, because they're so young, right? They haven't really had time to do such a thing, and then they go out and get a gun and do this terrible, horrible action. But just quick question: of those 4 things, do you know if they're rank ordered? Because I would make a serious contention that the second thing that you said there is probably the biggest motivating factor of all, which is they don't see any way out of what they're doing. So what they do is they sort of take revenge on existence as it is.
Yeah. I sort of ordered them in what I sort of thought was a rough chronological order in how it happens to a mass shooter.
Okay. I do have 1 or 2 other things I wanted to say about this, but obviously, John, this is something that's captured the consciousness of people worldwide.
Sure. Hallebrine, from what you're saying, it implies that there are no mass shooters who didn't have childhood trauma.
No, this is the 4 most consistent things across all the mass shooters they studied going back to the 60s.
Right. Well, trauma figures largely in a lot of the newer research around autism, ADHD, around frustrations, a lot of issues. One writer, Gabor Mate, who goes around the world talking about childhood trauma, he talks about transgenerational trauma that happened to your family that affects you. Family trauma before you were born has an impact on you and the way you're raised and the way you come into the world. So this field of trauma is very interesting to my work, and it seems to have an impact on an awful lot of the clients I see.
Because when it happens,
Early trauma. Go ahead.
Sorry, John. I didn't, because the Discord, it made it seem like you had finished talking, so that's why I started talking. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just like obviously, if you have some sort of traumatic event happen earlier on in your life, your brain is still developing, and that can have a serious effect on the way that you perceive the world and your relationships with others. And if it makes you instinctually hostile, more hostile than the average person, that can lead to very few positive relationships with people. It leads to you feeling isolated, and then obviously down the rabbit hole you go.
Yep.
Right. But yeah, I'm really glad you brought up the subject, Holobrine. It's a terrible thing what's going on, primarily seemingly in the U.S. It seems that based on everything that I can read at the moment and from what I can understand, the reason why these people tend to carry out these mass killings is because, well, they're very unhappy with the way their life has gone. They want to take revenge somehow on the precursors of existence, the life that they had leading up until this moment. And so they figure the most malevolent way they can carry out their revenge is by taking it out on innocent people. Because, I mean, like, it makes sense to take it out on people that have directly caused you harm, but it also makes a even more wicked statement if you take it out on innocent people, which is what these three people did. I think it was in El Paso, Dayton, and somewhere in California, right?
A few days ago there was 2 in one day. I'm not sure about the third.
Yeah, it's a crisis of meaning, and when these people don't really see much meaning to the pain of their existence, it makes you can sort of logically follow the rationale in their head to understand how they get to that point. And what we need to do is we need to find ways to prevent people from going down that path. It's why people do, like, whenever stuff like this happens. Obviously, you know, there's logic behind people that say you want to have more gun control, but there's also logic behind people calling for more mental health protections and more mental health funding, because that is a core aspect of it.
Yeah, I have my own ideas, like, related to the 80% school shooters statistic of, like, not using their own gun. This is just my opinion, but I do kind of think it makes sense that maybe you should be somewhat responsible if your gun is used in a horrific shooting because you didn't secure it well enough.
Yeah, I again, there's logic in that. Unfortunately, I don't feel well equipped enough to be able to discuss the both sides of that. Also, because, you know, like, I don't blame you, dude. It's an important conversation that we need to have. It's just right now, and given my political background, I don't feel well equipped to be able to address both sides of the situation. But it is something that we do need to address, and I think it's something that we could definitely consider talking about later on in the future on the show. By the way, I completely forgot to bring up the fact that we got 2 super chats. One came from Joel Wisp before, and he said John Tucker because he's still trying. I don't know. I can't remember why that was a joke. It's been so long. But also, Gray59 sends in $5, and he says, thoughts and prayers for the victims and their families. Yes, absolutely. And thank you so much for sending that in, Gray5. And hopefully with support from people like you, we can continue to educate people about different mental predispositions and, God forbid, maybe give the right information to people who might be thinking about doing something terrible like this, whether it's to other people or to themselves, before it's too late. So thank you for bringing that topic to our attention, Holobrine.
One more thing I want to say. I linked I'm going to plug your Discord again, because I linked this article with the study in the Discord. So if you want to read it for yourself, it's in the general sharing channel. You might have to scroll up a lot because the Discord is pretty busy, but you can find it in there.
It's getting busier. We're almost at 600 members. Very exciting. Thank you very much for doing that, Holobrine, and we hope to hear from you again in future episodes.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, peace out, dog. Moving on. I'm moving out. That Billy Joel song just hit me like a wave right there for a second. Moving on to Chum. It's a good song too. Chum, you're unmuted. What's happening?
Oh no, I'm unmuted. Hello, YouTube. My name is Chum. Actually, my name isn't Chum. My real name is Andrew, but you can call me Chum.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So anyway, so this is
sorry, Chum. Before you get started, can I just ask you to lean into your mic just a little bit, because you're just a tiny bit low. That's all.
Okay. Yeah,
you're good.
Sorry.
You're good.
There we go. All right. So, during the discussion with Hollow, Mr. John was your name?
John is my name.
Yeah, okay, thank you. You mentioned trauma the other day, or
Hmm.
not the other day, but you mentioned trauma, and something that popped into my head when I heard that, when I heard you say that, was it was related to my dad. See, um, when I was a lot younger, relatively young, I wouldn't say like 3 or 4 years old, but I was definitely at the age where I was very much still in in a cognitive development sense or stage. My dad, he was a he was drunk drinking and driving, and ended up getting in an accident, and had uh, sorry, excuse me, but he ended up in a DUI case where he got in an accident and caused somebody to die. And at that point, he was sent to prison for, I want to say, like maybe like 3 years. I'm not really sure about the timing on this, but essentially, yeah, I think the sentence was for 5 years, but due to various good behavior and
Right.
other factors, that he got out somewhat early. But anyway, so when you mentioned the trauma uh, part of the story, that part came to my mind. There was something else that I wanted to point out as well. For the kind of losing that here, but there was something I wanted to say. It was I have a few notes here I've written down.
Yeah. Okay.
The first one is I argue with my brother, which I've already touched on before in the YouTube comments on Max's channel. I told the story where, well, not I didn't tell a story, but I asked a question to Max of, do you ever get upset when you're arguing with somebody and like tend to focus on trying to win the argument, even though
Oh, that was
in
you.
the grand, yeah, that was
Yeah.
me, yes.
Okay.
Uh, so yeah, that was a point I mentioned before. Hold on a sec. There's another note. Uh, I hate. Oh, what the heck? That was weird. Sorry. I hate it when people misunderstand me. Is another one of my notes. That's another one of my biggest pet peeves. Is when people tend to like. I really tend to clarify and uh what's the term for it? It's there's this I came up with something. I was talking with my friend about this earlier the other day, and I was talking with him about autism and mental health and stuff. And I think what I said was is that I give myself an out in case I'm ever wrong, because I don't ever want to be um like held responsible for spreading misinformation just because I didn't know something.
Oh, dude.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what the deal was is that I was thinking to myself, I don't want to be it upsets me when people misunderstand me, because if I'm wrong about something, it's because I want it to be because I was incorrect about it, rather than it being because, oh shoot, what was that?
Dude, I know exactly what you're saying. I'm the exact same way. I said this is a conversation that I've had with like my therapists and like my mental health professionals throughout my entire past. The thing that causes me the most genuine stress when it comes to interacting with other people is when bad things happen and I am not sure what happened, if I'm at fault, if they're at fault, or whatever. It's a complete cluster and I don't know how to deal with it. And it's the same thing on YouTube, like whenever I get these nasty comments from people saying that I'm wrong or an idiot about something, it's like, okay, like I don't mind being wrong about something. My motto on YouTube is the thing that I love more than being right is being wrong, because if I'm wrong, it means I'm one step closer to being right. But if I don't know if I'm right or wrong, it just leaves me in this state of existential confusion, and without some sort of way to create order, I'm permanently stuck there, and I find no way to come out of that chaotic state of mind. So I totally understand where you're coming from.
Um, okay, so I'm looking at the DMs that I was sending to my friend right now, and this was okay. So he was talking. Oh yeah, okay. So what was happening was that he had a little scuffle with me, and I was talking with him about some. It started with a conversation about like a Minecraft mod or something. I don't know, but basically, it's ended up going in this direction. And this is what I posted to him: I'm more conscientious of how I speak than it might first seem. I'm no saint, of course, but and considering I'm autismo incorporated, as I put it, it's fair to say that I struggle. But I do think about what kind of information I'm specifically trying to convey, at least in a surface, straightforward sense. Painfully obvious is a strong way of putting it, for example, but I really did mean it, and then that was going into the specifics about what I was talking about. But and
Yeah.
my brain scrambles to justify it. It reaches for the wildest conclusions to get an answer that lines up right, regardless of how true or considerate that my response would be. It's because it's like, if this isn't true, then nothing in my reality is, and I'm living in a lie.
Okay. I know. Yeah, dude, you're preaching to the choir, dude. You basically just said everything that's made me more angry than anything else over the last, I don't know, decade of my life, ever since I got my diagnosis.
Yeah.
Just unfortunately, like, I would love to talk to you more about this because this is something that drives me absolutely nuts. But unfortunately, we
Oh
do
man,
have to move on. But
darn.
yeah, I like feel free to come on again sometime in the future. But I just wanted to
Oh, I'd
validate
love
what you
to.
were saying, because the thing about being differently wired is the fact that we constantly need everything to be in order so that we don't find ourselves just irked by one little thing and then everything falls apart. And a necessary thing in order to be able to maintain that order is to make sure that everything is logically and ethically consistent, which is something that a lot of neurotypicals don't tend to feel the need for, right? So that's why
That's right.
there's a consistent divide among people like us.
All right.
Yeah. So
Sorry to interrupt. But I kind of don't like that word. It kind of makes me feel otherworldly. You know what I mean?
oh well,
It's like,
sorry.
oh, I'm such a weirdo. I'm such a freak. I'm such a loser. What am I? I'm so
Well,
different.
you understand the basic intention of what I'm trying to say,
Yeah,
anyways.
I know. I'm not trying to be accusatory here. I'm just
No, I know, I
pointing
know.
out.
It's cool, dog. Unfortunately, we do have to move on. We do have 3 other callers, and we only have a few minutes left in the show. But thank you so much for coming on, chum, and just
Yeah,
yep.
I hope what I've been saying has been insightful to everybody who's watching this show. If my mom is watching this, hi mom.
Yeah. No, dude. Yeah, what you just said there just pulled on my heartstrings. Like, I don't know. The best way I can describe to you what I felt when you were saying that is like you find out that this girl you really like has the same amount of love for a band that you like or something. It's just like, oh my god, you love so and so as much as I do, and then it's just like you're in that feeling. So hopefully
Yeah.
that makes sense. All right, thank you so much, Sean. I hope you can come on.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a real pleasure for me too. All right, moving on. Who do we have next? We got Stooge. Stooge, you are unmuted. What's happening?
Hello.
What's poppin', player?
I'm alright. Just waiting to get called up, and I guess now's my time to shine. I guess.
Wait, what do you want to talk about?
Well, just before I start, I'd want just to know that I do have a tendency to drift off a bit when I talk. Basically, I just try and fill in the gaps in context. So if I do that, do tell me, because it's kind of
Okay. Well,
kind of a plague.
yeah, I understand. Just before you get started, I just gonna ask you if you have a question. Just all I ask you to do is try to be to the point, because, like I said, we do have a couple other people behind you.
Yep, I do understand. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the topic I want to talk about is how kind of anger made me through just life made me quite isolated by kind of socially and just in general in society, and just thought maybe just talk about it and see if anybody else has experienced this kind of thing, and maybe just show them that they're not alone. This has happened to them. Because I do remember one case that one of my mates have this happened to him, and he actually did commit suicide because of this. I just want to kind of help out with this kind of. And basically, my whole story starts back when I was 2 years old. Back in the day, I used to live up in Newcastle in England, and what happened is my mother wanted to leave England and go off to Greece because it was an era where people started, drinking and doing drugs at my age, like really young, like 12 and all that. She wanted me to stay away from that. But it was a kind of a bad thing because as soon as I arrived there, it was all problems and troubles. And one of the main thing is that I didn't fit in whatsoever. Like I go to school, like say like I'd go to the park or something like that, and I would speak half English, half Greek. I would say like, "Oh, can I have some water?" But the water would be in Greek. And ever since a kid, and that kind of affected me quite a lot because I never really made a lot of friends during that time, and that kind of made it worse in the future. You'll see how that relates a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is I grew up a lot by getting bullied because I was quite different. I would never really fit in with the Greek culture and how people worked. So I got bullied quite a lot, and that kind of made me angry really fast.
Sure.
That and one thing that really influenced that is when I was back in England, when I used to go to what was the word, caretakers? I can't remember. Anyway, so whenever I went to school, like preschool, whatever it's called, I remember my mother told me that I was so angry at that I would beat kids every day that the principal would wait outside the door for my mother every single day, and every single day I would have beat some kid. And I was like, what, 2 years old?
Yeah.
And it was, yeah, and that kind of influenced it. So I was really, really violent and angry back in the day. And after a while, I started, fighting with kids like really viciously and all that. And I get separated. I got pulled out of school quite a lot of times. And
Yeah.
time passed on. Stuff still kept going. Then primary school comes on. And middle school, primary school comes on. New kids and all that. And I was lucky. The school was right next to my house. It was only like a walk out off the road, and that was it. But problems started there too. I was even more violent than ever, and in schools in Greece, they never had a thing of really heavy detentions. Didn't have proper sort of ways to stop kids from being bullied and all that. They just said just deal with it kind of thing. So I got bullied quite a lot, and there was a certain one kid that I met when I first went to primary school that was called Irenaeus. Weird name, I know. And he always bullied me. It was really annoying. And multiple times throughout when I was in middle school, from first year to fourth year, I always got bullied by him. I broke out. I had a lot of breakdowns where I went so mad that I pulled scissors and stuff. I tried to kill the person. Yeah, it was
Okay.
quite bad. It was mental, I guess.
So, okay, sorry, just before you continue, just let me ask, like these violent outbursts that you had, now that you're older, like, have you gotten a diagnosis that sort of attributes why you acted out in that way, or it sort of?
Well, from what happened is, when my mother knew a doctor friend. He used to be a psychologist. I don't know where he is now, but what happened is he just did a diagnosis on me and just said that it was the life of me moving to a whole other country kind of made me violent, and he said that was the main cause of it. Basically, so it wasn't really something psychological or something like that from what I could have derived from him. And he just said, just happened, you moved to whole countries when you were 2 years old, kind of affected you.
What?
And
Hold on a second, John. Like, I gotta ask, does that sound usual to sort of? Because what you just said there is kind of, for lack of a better word, disturbing. Attacking people with scissors. Is it enough to say that just because you went to another country that would instill that type of behavior, John?
Well, when you're uprooted and put in a trauma-producing situation, it has an effect on you. There's quite a lot of trauma associated with refugees. In Toronto, for instance, quite a few people come to Toronto from places they're escaping from,
Yeah.
and sometimes there's difficulty settling in. But of course, everyone responds differently. There probably are other things at play with the scissors business than just simply relocating. I'd say there's something more going on there.
Like, before, like, we have to move on in a second, dude. Can you think of anything else that might have brought on that type of behavior?
well, let me think.
Because I can think back to my youth when I was in that type of rage, and I could have killed them too. But going after them with violent weapons, that never happened.
Hmm. Well, another reason I think is because nobody really took me seriously whenever I talked about being bullied and because I was being bullied and all that and being in a different culture completely. Nobody really took me seriously when I talked about it because my mother was.
So you were kind of frustrated and terrorized at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
But let me do know that I'm not like that anymore. I've
No.
moved
We
on
know.
from that.
We know. It's just it just seemed a little bit more intense than usual. But the way that John put it about being uprooted from where you were and then going to a place where nobody seems to understand you or take you seriously, I suppose that is a powder keg situation, and it just happened the way that it did.
Yeah. You're not the first person to be baffled from the story, really.
Well, you need to forgive yourself for that person that was.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're on. It sounds like you're on a road to recovery from that situation. And
Well, yeah.
looking
Later
at it in
on,
a
I will.
context.
Yeah, sorry I cut you off there. I'm kind of.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, that later on, I will explain how I've changed and I've just basically completely changed for myself.
Well
And
done.
yeah, that kind of that was the next chapter before I got stopped. And what happened is in fourth grade, that's when I started growing up. I started being more more having a brain basically. And then that's when Irenaeus, the kid that used to bully me, actually got a lot friendly, got mature, and we actually became friends. And to this day, I'm still talking with him. And
Good.
ever since then, anger was the anger really settled down. I only have like some anger issues whenever like was say just somebody punched me or something, like kids kind of stuff, It's like, oh, you saw my Yu-Gi-Oh card or something like that. And yeah.
Yeah.
And after that, it was it was great. It was just easy to go through it, but it all went downhill in sixth grade, where the anger and the fact that I didn't have anyone to talk to uh, basically kind of made me kind of depressed. To be honest, I'm not quite sure how to place it. I was
Right.
really sad. I was really annoyed and all that. It made me quite angry. But I never had those outbursts anymore. I was just I had some breakdowns every then and so just started crying in my room and just. But there were small ones, not really that bad. And but because after all that time, after all the primary school things, when I went to middle school, because
Sorry, dude. Unfortunately, I do have to cut you off because we do have to move on. But like, if you want to come on again in the future and tell more about your story, we really do want to hear it. Because even with that little bit that you did share with us, you did tell us something important, which is the fact that even when you're young, there are patterns in youth that do tend to pop up when you're an adult, and the fact that I'm speaking to is, if you happen to be in a completely different situation than one that you're used to and nobody's taking your feelings or your thoughts seriously, it's a recipe for disaster. And thankfully things didn't turn out the way that they could have.
But let me do know that I am completely fine now. I've progressed so far away from it, just to not put anyone out in the chat that it's like, oh my god, he's a serial killer, or something like that.
No, I know you're not. And yeah, it really seems that you're fine because, like, even like you just said, you managed to find, to use your own words, you managed to find your brain when you got into fourth grade, and I didn't manage to find mine until I turned 21. So you're in a good state right now, dude.
Yeah, completely.
All right, so please, come on sometime in the future, and we'd love to hear the rest of your story.
No problem.
All right, cool.
See you later, then.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, we're just about to run out of time, but we do have 2 more callers left. Eliza, because we do talk a lot. I'm unfortunately going to have to save you for another show, but I hope you understand because we do talk a lot off the air. So, but what I will do, just as compensation for the fact that you're not going to be able to come on, is I'm just going to put up your artwork. So you guys know how I told you last week somebody sent in or made a piece of fan art for me. Well, her name is Elisa, and I was planning on bringing her on the show, but unfortunately we're about to run out of time. I just want to put up a piece of artwork that she did for me. John, I don't know if you can see this, but this is the banner for my YouTube channel right now. And basically what it is... Hold on, okay, it's in... Basically, what Elisa did is she took a picture from one of my favorite video games, Silent Hill 2, where the guy looks into a mirror, and she put in me. Do you see it right now?
Not yet. No.
Okay, it'll pop up in a second. Just let me know.
Okay.
It's in the YouTube stream. Anyways, while you guys look at that, I'm going to bring on our final caller, and that would be Cross is unmuted. Cross, what's happening? Oh, and sorry, before you speak, Cross, sorry. John, if you have to leave, that's totally fine. Just let me know.
I will be, I'll be exiting at 8 o'clock.
Okay, so it is 8 o'clock. So if you want to drop out, I'll just talk to Cross and then I'll end the show.
Okay. See you next week.
Yeah, thank you so much, John, as always.
Hey, bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, Cross, what's going on? Sorry, dude, that John wasn't here. Hopefully you didn't have a question specifically for him.
Okay, cool. On the clock. First off, hey, Max, how's it going?
I'm good, dog. What's happening?
Nothing much. I just thought I'd pop by, say a few things, and, say hello to everybody on the show.
you just want to give a shout-out to everybody?
More or less, and just talk about a little bit about the topics.
Okay.
And I did want to have John's thought about a few things, but if he had to go, he had to go. Can't help that.
Well, if you want, you can always come on next week and talk to him. But if that's no problem, then please just proceed.
Yeah, no problem. My experiences with anger was limited because I didn't have a lot of anger outbursts growing up, except for early times in my youth when I about turned up until 16, more or less. Other than that, I've had experiences with those who've had ADD and ADHD who have had terrible anger outbursts, such as my father and to an extent some other individuals that I've known. And what I've realized with those types of individuals, they seem to get lost in their anger, and then because of their ADHD, they forget what they do when they're in the process of their anger.
Yeah.
So when they do something in their anger, and then whatever happens to the individuals they affect, damage done, and then half an hour later they forget what they've done.
Yeah. Well, that's usually what happens whenever somebody does really something. That's why it's stupid, right? It's because you're unconscious while you're doing the stupid act. You don't realize that what you're doing is really, really stupid, right?
Mm-hmm. So I've had lots of those types of experiences with my father doing something insensitive to my mother or doing something that's inconsiderate to my mother or those around him, because of his ADHD, it forces him to act in a way that he would normally not act. So do something first, think about it later, and then when he's ticked off, well, oops,
Yeah.
And then it's damage control from there.
Yeah, and it's also quite exhausting too, because as somebody who also has ADHD, if you're constantly trying to be conscious of everything that you're doing, it can get to the point where, just going off of the topic of last week, you do feel mentally fatigued. But unfortunately, it's like, what else do you do? Because if you aren't hypervigilant about your behavior and what you're thinking all the time, and constantly being on guard as to what you're doing so that it doesn't come back to bite you in the ass, you might find yourself in a situation where you do something, like you said, unconsciously and act stupidly.
Mm-hmm. And that happens with my dad all the time, and my girlfriend has the same problem with her mother, and she and I kind of parallel each other all the time, going, okay, how do we point this out in the moment that what our parental figures are doing are affecting us or affecting those around us? And we try to catch it in the moment, or if we're not able to catch it in the moment, we try to bring it up in discussion and say, hey, this is what happened not too long ago. But sometimes they won't register it in their heads, or it's, and it's difficult because when they're lost in anger, how does one react to that? So that's one situation that I'm familiar with anger in.
Yeah. Sorry, just very quickly before you tell me the other situation, I really want to emphasize what you just said there, because it's very, very, very healthy. when you're angry, you're not in the right state to be rational. What you're like, especially if you're on the spectrum and you're having a meltdown, when you're in that state of mind, everything that anybody says or does in your direction is a threat. What you need to do is you need to wait until afterwards, and you got to follow through on this if you want to be effective. You have to wait until afterwards. You got to come to them and you got to talk to them about whatever it was that was going through their mind and enlighten them as to how they came off. So that way, if they ever find themselves in a situation in the future where they might go off like they did previously, they can step back and prevent themselves from doing it. And when I've done that for myself, especially in more recent years where I've tried to be more conscious of the things that I say and do, especially when I'm on YouTube, it's worked immensely for me. So please try to follow Cross's example here. Sorry to interrupt you. What was your other thing you wanted to say?
No, dude. Exactly. Like I'm 100% on board with what you said, and please interrupt me if I, overspeak, because Discord's crappy on that.
I don't know. Go ahead, dude.
Yeah. I lost my train of thought.
Speaking of ADHD, yeah, I understand.
Dude, it's fine. But yeah, the other examples, and I guess I'll pull out another example from another individual who has ADHD. This went with a previous conversation of the last topic we discussed about several weeks ago. I think it was always being right. When I was talking to that individual who always likes to argue and always wants to be right, sometimes when he gets angry about an argument and he's not in a state of being reasoned with, I followed with my way of reasoning and trying to get my point in by, how I discussed previously, which was method of suggestion. Have you thought about it this way? Have you approached it this way? In a form of a question and that kind of way. But when he's angry, it's even hard to put that in his thought process. But I say it anyway because, if I don't say anything, even when he's angry, then nothing will be received at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So it's always a balancing act with those types of individuals.
Yeah, you gotta, when it comes to different people, you always have to enact a different approach in order to be most effective.
But yeah, so that's what I wanted to bring onto the table today.
Okay. Well, yeah, what you just said there is very important, Cross, and it's something that I have been applying to my life unconsciously, but when you actually said it out loud, it sort of verified the years that I've been doing it and validated it. So please, guys, if you find yourself in situations where you're constantly getting angry or somebody else around you is getting angry, maybe you try and apply what Cross just said there about having somebody to follow up with you after such an outburst so that you can talk it over. Because once you do that, and people, all parties are heard, it encourages people to avoid situations like that in the future because they can get very stressful, right? Especially when you are differently wired and, sensory overload and all that crap. So anyways,
Right?
Exactly. So thank you so much, Cross, for coming on again and with your badass anime avatar that you guys can't see.
Thank you.
And we'd love to have you on again if you ever want to come on again.
Yeah, I'll definitely come on again when I can.
All right, awesome, dude. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you later.
Right.
All
Peace.
right. Peace. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that does it for this edition of the Differently Wired Show. Again, apologies to Eliza. I will talk to you after the show. Hopefully we can get you on next week. We'll put you at the front of the line if you so please. But before we finish, hey, people, I see people leaving, and I know some of you haven't liked the video. Why is that? Hey, before you go, just hit it. Don't even think about it. Just do it. Do it. Just get like Shia LaBeouf and just do it. Make your dreams come true. Don't let your memes be dreams. I can't remember what he said in that stupid video, but you get the point. And anyways, before I conclude, obviously I just want to thank John as always, even though he isn't here. He does all the intellectual work. I just make all the stupid jokes. and talk about how yellow I am. Oh, people are coming in. And hey, the people coming in, like the stream and all that crap. Before I conclude, I just want to remind you guys that there are 2 ways that you can really help support this content and other content that is on my channel. One way is financially. There is a PayPal link in the description box below. Plus, I am going to be putting out a Patreon-esque platform sometime in either this month or the beginning of next month. I'm just waiting for it to be released. Some of you who are in the know probably already know what I'm talking about. It's called ThinkSpot. It's like Patreon, but, without all the corruption behind the scenes. So look out for that. But I understand not everybody has the financial means to support me. But look, the most important thing that you guys can do to help out content like this and all the other content that you guys like on my channel is by taking either this video or any other video on my channel and just sharing it. Because the fact of the matter is, the YouTube algorithm seems to be popping up YouTubers that produce a certain type of content, and it's really just that flimsy, vapid type of content. People that just take videos of their cats or just vlog about going to the grocery store. And it's not me being cynical. It's literally like the way that it's been explained by people at YouTube and people that are in the know, actual journalists. That's how it actually works now. It's not about getting organic traction as it used to be. So in order for small YouTube creators to be able to be successful, the most effective way to do that is by taking their videos and sharing them around. And thankfully, a lot of you guys have been doing that, but we still got a lot of ways to go. We still got a lot of other people that are differently wired that might need some advice and resources and might need a calm and safe community like the one that we have in with our Discord server and all that. Anyways, you guys can hear my voice stumbling a little bit, so I am going to conclude. Thank you all to everybody that was watching live, and I hope to see you guys again next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when we do all this again. And until that time, do what the banner image says right now on your screen and stay yellow. Peace out.